Welcome in, builders. This week we're taking a look at middle-age Shinuyama, land of the Bakemono. This is the evolution from the early-age Yomi and the predecessor to the late-age Yomin, a very fun line of nations that has a pretty significant change between each of the ages. And I find them very, very fun. I enjoy the flavor and the different units and magic of all three ages. They do find themselves at various disadvantages in every age, really, and they still manage to kind of fight their way through. So respect where respect is due. Let's check out and see what they have going on. When the entrance to the netherworld closed, the Oni became fewer and fewer. The Bakemono slaves and human servants rebelled, and when the last of the Daoni died, the realm was taken over by Bakemono kings. Human smiths were forced to reveal the secrets of metalcraft, and the Bakemono became ready to conquer the lowlands from the humans. The Bakemono still live in tribal society, ruled by the strongest and most powerful of their kin. The Bakemono are a diverse kind. Huge, lumbering old Bakemono, proud, dying Bakemono, ghastly apparitions, and shape-shifting animals of the enchanted forests all heed the call of the Bakemono kings and the awakening god. So this is a very Japanese-inspired nation. The Bakemono, etc., etc., katanas, kind of a samurai aesthetic, very, very cool, like fantasy Japan thing going on here. For national features, our races are Bakemono, lesser Bakemono, rebated in the mountains. So that's basically the bigger Bakemono, and then we have the little more goblin-y ones here. We also have some humans still that hanging around, and we also have Kappa. So quite a diverse bunch here, really. For military, we run a gambit from light infantry to medium infantry to heavy infantry. We have Kappa, which are able to go underwater, and we have some supernatural commanders we can summon in, and even recruit some. We, however, do not have regularly recruitable sacred troops, although we do have some summonable sacred troops. For magic, we are strong in death, fire, earth, water, and we have some nature, and we have many national summons, many national summons. Our priests are weak. For scales and blesses, we have a turmoil limit of +1. Remember, that does limit us to order +1. And it allows you to go all the way down to turmoil +3 if you were so inclined. And we have a magic limit of +1, so we can go up to magic 3. For buildings, we use primitive forts. This does mean we can do one upgrade to a fort. However, most people in this era are able to build castles, so we are still behind in architecture. However, our forts do give us a 15% bonus to gold, resources, and recruitment points if we can get down into the cave layer. For sites, we only have one site, Mount Shinuyama. This gives us 2 death, 1 fire, 1 earth, 1 water. So a pretty good spread here of most of our paths that we're going to be able to use. Units and sacreds. For units, we have a pretty good little spread here. As previously mentioned, we don't have a sacred that's a normal recruitable. We would have to summon them in. Starting at the bottom here, we have some various Bakemono show. These are the little goblin-like guys. Our first one here is recruitable in all highlands and mountains. We also get a rebate on that. So mountain recruitment 2 means this guy would only cost 5 gold in a mountain area. Pretty darn cheap. And he needs to be cheap because he is not very good. So base stats here, we are stealthy, mountain survival, forest survival. We have dark vision. This one is undisciplined. And then, as mentioned, we have that rebate. 7 gold, 1 resource, 3 recruitment points. You can absolutely pour these guys out. However, I think we have better options even on the cheap end of things. Does come with a club, is armored with furs, notable for being size 2, while still being almost human in stats. So not bad there. That size 2 is rather nice because we can have 5 of them to a square. However, I don't think this guy is particularly great because we just have better options. Next up, we have the Bakemono show with a Yari. This is the same guy we were just looking at, but now he has traded out a club for a Yari, costing an extra resource up to 2. Yaris are very nice weapons. Length 4. This guy has 11 attack with his +1 attack from a Yari for 15 piercing damage. Not quite at that 16 gold standard, but darn close. And I'm gonna give it the bonus point just because it is length 4. So most things will not have a length 4 weapon, so you'll always have at least a chance to get a repel. 5 of them in a square makes you have decent attack density too, so your attack is actually a little bit higher than it may look just because of harassment penalties. Unfortunately for this guy, he is still only wearing furs and no hat, no shield, just like the previous guy, and he is undisciplined. I think, again, we have better options. Next up, we have the Bakemono Archer, also recruitable in Highlands and Mountains, also has the mountain discount. Same stats we've been looking at. 3 resources for this guy because he has both a dagger and a short bow. Normally, short bows in the Middle Age I'm relatively down on, and doubly so for somebody who is even a little weaker on their strength. However, you could, in theory, get 5 of these guys in a single square. So if you're doing Envenom arrows or you're doing fire arrows, both of which are spells we can do, you can much more efficiently get that buff out. However, again, I think we have better options than this guy. Speaking of those better options, Bakemono Show. Now, note this one is not a recruit in any highland or mountain, so you do need to have a fort for this, but this is the same guy, however, he's a little more disciplined, so he only has Mountain Survival, Forest Survival, Dark Vision, and Mountain Recruitment 1, so we could get his cost down to 7 if we are in a mountain. He has Arigaru armor, so this is a pretty decent set. 12 protection, only loses 1 defense, has 2 encumbrance. No hat, no shield, unfortunately, but we are wielding that really nice Yari. As previously mentioned, size 2 means 5 of these in a square, and these ones are actually disciplined. So we can recruit a lot of these for dirt cheap, absolutely dirt cheap. 10 of these guys is either 80 or 70 gold. That's hardly anything. I mean, a lot of human troops cost you 15 to 20 gold each, and they're probably not wielding a length 4 Yari, nor are they getting 5 of them to a square. So I like these guys a lot, and they combo really well with one of our troops that we're going to look at. So these guys are a very nice budget line option. Great for expansion, great for eating lances, pretty darn good. Now, will they win a grind combat line against line? No, probably not, unless you're fighting some pretty weak human frontliners without, like, heavy armor. But they can hold out a surprisingly long time with that length 4 Yari repel. Next up, we have the Bakemono Archer. Similar to the previous guy, but again, he's a little more civilized, a little more disciplined. He has the Arigaru armor, which is just a better set. I like these guys quite a bit. They're a little pricey for a short bow, but that being said, I mean, again, you could get these guys for 7 gold, 5 of them to a square for buffing. This is a prime target for getting some fire arrows and giant strength, both of which they would really like, and we are good at casting both of those spells. So these guys can be surprisingly effective in the early game if you can get some buffs up on them. Next up, we have Bandit. I don't care for these guys. They have stealth. They have Pillager. Pillager's like a special kind of attack you can do that causes extra civilian deaths and gets you a little bit of money and causes extra unrest. We are not quite as into the unrest thing as the demons in Yomi were, so that's kind of less. He is wearing the Jingasa, which is kind of the straw hat, which is a pretty decent hat actually, but it's human. You can only have 3 to a square, 9 gold, 11 resources, 5 recruitment, compared to this guy for 6 resources, 8 gold, 9 recruitment. I think I'm going with the little gobbo every time. I just don't see these guys being it. Map move 10 versus 10, so there's no difference there. Where these would be good is if you were somehow going to be using the Pillager, but I don't think that's super duper common. Next up, we have Bandit. This guy is wielding a short bow. Again, size 3, human stats, much more costly. However, if you were in a short bow versus short bow duel, maybe the extra helmet and better armor could be something useful there. They also have a Wakizashi, which is a really good melee weapon. Length 1, 12 attack, 15 piercing or slashing damage. That is something, but I mean, how often do you want your archers to be in melee? So, and if I did, we have a better troop for that. So I don't see the bandits being particularly useful here on Shinuyama. Next up, we have Bakemono Warrior. This is the same guy, the disciplined version. However, now he's wielding a wakizashi, and he has the Ashigaru armor. I would never get these guys. Length 1 weapon on a relatively weak chassis. I'd rather just use the Yari to hold the line, because again, if I wanted a killy troop, we have a better one. Next up, we have the Kappa. Can be recruited in both land and underwater forts. So there is one hint that they don't mention up here. We can build underwater forts. That's kind of nice. The Kappa is a very interesting unit. So they're a bit pricey. 20 gold, 1 resource, 8 recruitment points. They are amphibian. They have recuperation. They have land encumbrance 5. So if we look at his encumbrance here, he is not good on land. He is not good at land. Melee encumbrance 9. So if we are above water, we have extra fatigue while fighting. They will poop out really quickly. Remember, it's about 20 fatigue when you start taking combat penalties. So by the time you walk forward and attack twice, you're probably already starting to take penalties. So on land, Kappa are not particularly great. Now, there still is a use case here, though. They have 2 attacks, one of which is a claw, 10 attack, 13 slashing damage. It's kind of whatever. They also have the Kopo. I might be saying that wrong. This is a low attack at only 8. It's a blunt 10 damage, but extra effect on damage, limp. So if you hurt somebody, and it is armor piercing, you just give them a limp. So that is kind of interesting. Limps can kill troops just while they march on in future battles. So even if you were to lose these guys, maybe they could get a limp on a thug or a super combatant, and you'd be pretty darn happy with that. Going underwater, well, now we're talking, because we don't have that land encumbrance 5. So we go way, way down to like 4 encumbrance when they're fighting underwater. 15 protection, because they're kind of turtle-like creatures, is not bad, especially underwater. Very nice. You can definitely use these guys underwater. They will have semi-high attrition. Underwater tends to be very stabby. It also tends to have things like tridents and poison, which are pretty killy. So a high attrition troop, but absolutely great that an otherwise land-based nation just has a good amphibious troop. They also have recuperation. So that'll help somebody out who's, any of your survivors can heal up and fight again, as it were. Next up, we have 3 really good troop options here. First up, we have the Dai Bakemono, a really good troop. 25 gold, 27 resources, 19 recruitment points. So this is a premium. This is an elite troop for us. What do you get, though? Well, you get 21 HP and 16 strength. Now, you pay for that a little bit with size 4, but that's a nice troop. You're getting almost 1 HP per gold. You are very strong. Your map moves 8, so you're a little bit slow. 5 encumbrance on a melee troop like this, wearing relatively heavy armor, is actually not too bad. And you're using a 2-handed weapon. So if you need to hack apart some heavy cav, a 13 attack should not be looked at askance. Like, that's really good. In addition, we have a length 2 weapon. So a lot of people in middle age are running around with broadswords or long swords or the like, size length 1 weapons. So you actually can parry a lot more things than you otherwise would think, like, let's say, other line troops. And 28 slashing damage, other than the hardest of targets, is plenty of damage to either kill things or hack limbs off with each swing. The Bakemono size 4 version comes with mountain survival and dark vision. He is also wearing samurai armor and a kabuto, which is that type of helmet. Very, very nice. The Nodachi is no slouch, no pun intended. However, unless I was recruiting these specifically for, hey, I need to go kill some heavy cav. Hey, I need to go kill this certain thing. I need to fight a super combatant. I need to try to break a monolith or something. And even that, I think there's a better option. This guy, unfortunately, kind of gets overshadowed. Weirdly enough, perfectly fine unit, very usable, very good. However, Dai Bakemono with longbow. Now, The longbow's an okay weapon in Middle Age. It's not actually the longbow that's so important. It's the fact that we can hold and fire. Why is that important? We can hold and fire while our amazing point buffer mages can buff the bejeebus out of us. Temper armor, giant strength, battle fury, flaming arrows and venom arrows, weapons of sharpness, all kinds of buffs, and we can cast all of those really well with our casters. So we have 10 rounds essentially, actually no, 12. Yeah, 12 rounds essentially. We could hold still and soak up buffs. Very, very strong there. That also means that you can count on these guys to stay in formation. So if you want to put them on your flanks, you can count on them staying there. They're not going to charge forward and get sucked into the middle while the enemy cav rushes past or something. They'll hold still wherever you want them. Or maybe you hold in the middle and you're the guy trying to do a flank. Very, very high use for strategy there. I love units like this where it's a heavily armored unit with a decent melee weapon that has a longbow or a great bow in some cases that allows them to just hold still. Losing out on only 2 damage is not bad. The difference in targets, like viable targets between 26 slashing damage and 28 slashing damage, is very small. If 28 is going to do it, 26 will probably do it too. Now, of course, like I said, 28 is better against heavy cav, monoliths, really buffed up things. But generally speaking, you can get by with an Odachi with 26 damage. In addition, because you can preserve these guys out of melee, you can use other cheaper units as your generic unit. You can let something like a front line of Bakemono Show and Bakemono do most of your fighting against indies and preserve the strength of your Dai Bakemono. And then when you go up against a target that they're not going to work for, you could change up your formation and have these guys deal with it. So a lot of versatility on those units, a lot of strategic options, a lot of tactical options. Finally, for our troop lineup, we have the Bakemono. And oh boy, this is a pretty good troop actually. 25 gold, 2 resources, 4 recruitment points. So you can absolutely use up all of your gold and turn it into troop strength as this nation. Often in the early game, I recruit Bakemono Show and Bakemono as expansion parties. These work exceptionally well in Dominion 6. Why? Bakemono Show are size 2. Bakemono are size 5. In Dominion 6, we have a mechanic that allows troops that are 3 larger and non-trampling to push their way past smaller units. So our Bakemono can push their way through a line of Bakemono Show, or even if you have some archers in the way, like Bakemono archers, they can push their way to the front. Now, unfortunately, they're combat speed 13, whereas our Yari troops are speed 8. So it is rather difficult to script these guys to hit properly. In an ideal world, your Yari close with the enemy wastes their attack getting repelled by a Yari, and then your Bakemono steps forward and squishes them. It's very hard to do. It's very hard to do. You also have these guys as undisciplined, so you can't even just hold an attack. So you're generally speaking of these guys way, way in the back, which makes them kind of hard to buff. And it also is just hard to time things. Does the enemy actually close with your Yari? Do your Yari have to charge forward? Are you hold and attacking? Are you just attacking? It's kind of difficult. In addition, because they're not scripted at all, they tend to do weird things that normal troops, no matter what your scripting is, don't do. So like oftentimes I'll see them win a fight in the front, whereas other troops would probably just like monster mash into the middle. They'll just wander towards the back, like eating extra arrows and dying one at a time or something. So they're kind of dumb. But they make up for that with a length 2 great club that does 30 blunt damage. These are very similar to the ogres that you can summon in via conjuration. However, we can just recruit them for gold. Very powerful. Very, very powerful. Need to smash a monolith? Grab this guy, give him some giant strength, and you can just straight up have enough damage to actually be able to hurt a monolith. Because remember, this is a 2-handed weapon. so we get the extra strength. So if we buff him with giant strength, we even get more out of that. Absolutely ridiculous. These guys like buffs, although as mentioned, they're hard to give buffs. A little bit of protection would go a long ways. They have 28 HP. They have more HP on a 1-to-1 basis for gold. You're actually getting more than 1 HP per gold you spend. These guys are surprisingly good. They're a little bit, they don't look like they'd be cowardly, but they tend to actually kind of HP route if things go really sideways, and they tend to drag your Yari with them. So low protection, 11 is low-ish. Something like crossbows, fire large enemy monsters, are going to eat these guys alive. So they're a little bit of a finesse to use, but against expanding with indies, amazing. Shinuyama expands very well between the Bakemono show backed up with some Bakemono, and then for certain provinces, grabbing some Dai Bakemono of one type or the other. You could do some very, very efficient expansion. At bare minimum, even me, who's kind of known for his slow expansion, I can get 2 pretty consistent expansion parties rolling and be double expanding during that critical first year of the game. As mentioned, we have no sacred that is just straight recruitable. For heroes, we have several. We have Heart Hitter. This is I guess it's Heart Hider. I don't know. Very cool model on him either way. He comes in with Fire 1, Death 1, and he is immortal. So you can get a guy here that's kind of like a very light thug, I guess. Unfortunately, this is not the best. Like, I would probably give him a fire gem so he could Phoenix Power. Or maybe not even Phoenix Power. Maybe he just uses the gem and casts Fire Shield on himself. Maybe that's what I'd do. And then, like, skeletal body or something. I don't know. He is immortal, so that's kind of cool. We have the Tengu King. This is our air access, which we don't otherwise have. 4 air is enough to also bring up Storm if you're not planning on shooting, or perhaps giving yourself some arrow protection since we're not in love with taking arrows. Notice I didn't say shield a single time while looking at our troops. 4 air, 1 earth, 2 nature, priest level 2. Absolutely great unit. He can summon in our Tengu, which are our sacreds that we can summon. The problem is we don't have native air access and we don't have a native air mage to go search for gems. If you luck into it, amazing, great. They're actually pretty good sacreds. However, the odds of that being actually viable in your game, questionable. Next, we have Kitsune. This is a spy. She also brings in our Astral and Glamour. We do have some other summons who can do that, but she is pretty good at that. Also has Nature 2. She can shapeshift into a Kitsune, which is a fox. She has Glamour herself. Cool unit. If I got her, I would probably sight search with her, since she would open up 2 different magic paths. She does have the Nature Glamour cross path for summoning in Fey type troops. That could be pretty handy. Finally, we have Dragon of the Cave. Very cool shapeshifter. It shapeshifts into an Eastern Dragon. She comes in with 3 water and 2 nature. Also has the Dragon Pearl. Water +1, temporary water gems 1, gives her water breathing. She cannot release it. It's stuck on her. Pretty cool unit. She flies. She has the shapeshifting, can go underwater. Mostly, I would look at this as a mage. Notice that the high water and nature should make you think of things like naiads, or maybe even foul vapors could be a play here. Could do a lot of things that we might struggle to do on some of our other mages. So, cool one. Overall, very fun, cool heroes here. Very usable. I always love that. The only thing missing here is a multi-recruit hero, but I guess you can't have it all. For commanders, we have a pretty decent lineup here. Starting off, we have a Bakemono Scout, can also be recruited in all highlands and mountains. He's a slightly cheaper than normal Scout. He's only 30 gold. He's fine. He does exactly what you'd want him to do. Does have dark vision in addition to regular Scout things. We have the Nopera Bow. This is a assassin, and she's assassin 3. The higher your assassin, the lower chance of enemy bodyguards being present. She comes in with Spirit Sight and is blind. Has a Wakizashi as her weapon. Forest survival, stealthy 70, very stealthy, and has fear. So, as an assassin, a very interesting unit. Note 0 protection though. I think if you were serious about using a few of these, you'd want to at least give her a piece of armor. Maybe you give her like a handful of acorns, some kind of just body armor, and you let her go at it. Note she's not ambidextrous, so unless you replace the Wakizashi, if you try to dual wield, you're going to give yourself a penalty. I don't think I would go that route. I think 13 attacks decent, especially if you're going after like mages. The damage is okay. Having fear, remember, if you're doing an assassination attempt and they fear away, they just die. So that's kind of cool. But I do think you need a little bit of gear here to be viable. But always nice to have an assassin option. Next, we have Bandit Leader. If I'm not leading bandits, I would probably not get this guy. He does have 50 leadership, 12 map move. He can help move around some reinforcements, but otherwise I don't see too much use here. Next, we have the Bakemono Chief. Can also be recruited in highlands and mountains. Dark Vision, other standard traits of the Bakemono. Does have the Wakizashi and the Ashigaru armor. They're okay. I like getting these guys as just my fort builders or lead troops around because I can recruit them in mountains and highlands. I don't have to waste a fort turn in the early game. I think that's their highest value. Next up, we have the Kappa Chief. I would only get this guy if I was going to lead some Kappa underwater. He does a fine job on that. Even has 17 protection, which is kind of nice. Next up, we have the Bakemono General. A pretty good leader unit here. He is wielding that length 2 Nodachi, has the Kabuto and Samurai armor. 100 leadership is fine. Morale 15, he's pretty good there. Good magic resistance. Do note, these Bakemono are not demons or anything, so he doesn't have an undead weakness or a demon weakness or anything. Just a solid unit. He is size 4. That's not too disadvantageous here. Good strength, good attack skill. They're not terrible. They don't have any magic or anything. That's unfortunate. Oddly enough, I would like a javelin here or something so he could at least throw a weapon, but they're fine. They can at least take care of themselves a little bit. If you got flyers or something that lands on them, they'll probably chop a couple of them up. Next up, we have the Shuten Doji. Very interesting unit here. These are hard to use in my opinion. 150 gold, 1 resource, 1 recruitment. 18 HP. Their big claim to fame is their invulnerability 15, which not much to write home about there. They have dark vision, and they have a sleep aura. Any nearby enemy units will fall asleep if they fail a magic resistant roll. Mindless, inanimate, and undead beings are immune. So I have in the past gotten these guys, give him like a cheapy piece of armor that will stack with his invulnerability so he can actually survive a hit maybe, and then a shield or some other defensive items, and just let a couple of these kind of like trickle into your lines as just walking sleep bombs. Do note that the sleep aura is specifically enemy units, so pretty cool there. I tend to find that they just die a lot of times. Very neat though. I could see a lot of interesting things. Maybe if you wanted like a dueler, like for an arena fight, and you just want something cheap, give them some kind of piece of armor and like a big two-hander. So they walk up, ideally put the enemy to sleep, and then just kill them with the two-handed weapon. Maybe something that could be viable. Kind of a gimmicky thing. Next up, we have our 3 mages. We have the Bakemono Shaman. 115 gold, 1 resource, 2 recruitment points. Almost human stats, ever so slightly lower. They're size 2. They are priest level 1, and they get a random of fire, water, earth, and death. So, an okay spread, although only having 1 in those paths is pretty questionable use. 5 research because he has inept researcher 2. He is stealthy, mountain survival, forest survival, does have dark vision. These guys, 46 gold per year. They are ever so slightly on the efficiency side. Their big claim to fame, I think, is if you decide to go with Magic 3. Having 8 research for 46 gold per year is a very efficient mage. Now, they're slow to get because you'd only be getting 8 research per turn per fort recruiting them, and they're using all of your infrastructure when you could get a stronger mage, but they are very efficient. Being very efficient also means if you give them research boosters, all the more use. So natively, we could make school mentors, we could make lightless lanterns, we could make homunculi. Unfortunately, we don't have easy air access, so no alquils here, but very interesting in that aspect. Do note, this is a priest, so if we need banishing, this is our option. Overall, I would probably only get a few of these guys to build infrastructure and maybe do blessing banishes if I needed that, unless I was doing Magic 3. If I'm doing Magic 3, it's a very good sell for how efficient these can be. Next up, we have the Uba. Uba has Water 1, Death 1, Nature 1, and a random of Water, Earth, Death, Nature. The most important one here, I would say, is Nature 2, because she could form you a Thistle Mace. Also is our Nature 2 Sight Searcher. She can shapeshift into a Ghost Cat, which is a stealthy chassis, can sneak around and do her sight searching. 13 research for 152 gold per year is not efficient. Even in Magic 3, that only is going to take us to 16 for 152, so just barely efficient. However, getting 16 every turn compared to 8 every turn makes them a much faster research mage. In combat, kind of hard paths to use, unfortunately. I think if you're getting these, you're mainly thinking about research speed, maybe some early site searching, maybe some crafting of certain types. Yeah, they're fine. They're okay. You have to kind of make that call on which one's going to be your researcher. Finally, we have probably the gem of the nation, the Bakemono sorcerer. This guy is good. Now, the downsides, 545 gold. That's a pricey mage. 2 resources, 4 recruitment points, whatever. However, slow to recruit, 545 gold, and ancient. This dude comes in at 77 years old, and he gets old at 46. Look at these stat penalties. -4 strength, -4 attack, -4 defense, -2 precision, +4 encumbrance. Horrific stats, but he's sacred. He's sacred, and we don't have normal sacred troops. This guy is begging you for an unaging bless. If you get an unaging bless, look at this. He's not old. He's not old, and he's not old by a lot. He has 10 years in the tank before he's even going to age out. So we do not have that horrific amount of stat penalties. Adding 4 more to your spellcasting encumbrance is crippling. That takes a spell that would cost 20 up to 28. That's a huge difference in how useful somebody's going to be. So I think this nation is just absolutely begging you for unaging. And if you're going to do that anyways, you're probably looking at a mage bless of some sort. Not the only path you could take, but this guy is just that good. Why? 2 fire, 1 water, 2 earth, 2 death, priest level 1, and a random 110% of fire, water, earth, death. That is a great spread. You can get up to 2 in anything except for water, and water goes up to 2. That means we can do acid spells. We can do big fire. We can do big earth. We could do big death. Tons of versatility here. The biggest downside is actually how wide his pathing is. If we had 4 versions of this guy that had 3 fire, 1 guy had 2 water, 1 guy had 2 or 3 earth, 1 guy, that'd be better because you're paying for all the paths, and there's not a ton of cross paths, although of cross path mages, he's one of the better ones. Acid spells, rust spells, banefire spells, lots of good stuff here. Also great ritual potential for summoning in things. 21 research for 218 gold is just barely not efficient. However, these guys are combat mages. You're not going to want these guys coming out and sitting inside of a fort. As soon as you get one of these guys in the early game, you could be out doing fire arrows. 2 of these guys and a decent group of Bakemono show archers with something in front of them do a surprising amount of work. If you need just straight magic, you could earth power or you could phoenix power, and that gets you up into all the good stuff that you can get early on for combat magic. As previously mentioned, you also have the option for doing acid stuff, which is always a nice little combination to have. So an absolutely amazing mage here. You're definitely going to be happy with these guys. And just if I didn't point it out enough, they're not cap only. So yes, they are slow to recruit. Yes, they are a little bit expensive. However, we can build normal forts, which make these guys just a normal slow to recruit mage. Very, very nice. I love these guys. You never will have enough of them. You always wish you had more of them. Who should you make your prophet? Generally speaking, I would say the Bakemono general. He's got enough armor that he's not just going to fall over and die. If you don't give him a shield, he's okay in that. And he can protect himself with his Nodachi in case you get a flanker or a flyer. He'll have decent odds of hacking him down. And he's got 25 HP to back himself up with. So a pretty solid little unit here. Pretty happy with that. I wouldn't really consider anyone else. Maybe a Kappa Chief if I needed to go underwater and claim a throne. But we can craft rings of water breathing. And we can go down there. Yeah, it's going to rust your gear, but so what? The prophet's fine. I would probably go that route. 10 map move is a little sad. We can summon in flying things, so maybe one of those could be a different option if you don't like these, and you lose one early on and need to summon somebody else in. As for national items, we have no national items. As for national spells, we have quite a few, and they are all in Conjuration. I'm going to run through them here, and then we will go look at them in the Nation Viewer. We can summon in Ko-Oni. These are the little red angry guys from the early age. We can summon in Ao-Oni. We can summon in Karasu Tengus. Now, these require air. We don't natively have air. We do have that hero who can do it. We also, if we have air, can summon other air mages who could do this. This is an okay spell. For 2 nature gems, you get 3 Tengu out of it, and they are sacred. So, interesting, but hard for us to cast. We have Aka-Oni, which are the fire versions of the Yomi Oni. We have Konoha Tengus. This is a different variety. For 3 air gems, you get 5+. So if you're using your hero to do this, you would get 8 of them for 5 gems. Or excuse me, you get 8 of them for 3 gems. Very good efficiency there. We can summon Okami, which are some wolves. We can summon in a Bakeneko, which is a shape-shifting cat witch. We have Ambush of Tigers, because of course we do. We can summon in Oni, summon in Omukade, summon in the Ghost General, a very nice chassis. We can contact Dai Tengu. This is a very powerful spell. This is good enough if you want to gamble that you're going to be able to find air gems or trade air gems possibly. I would consider building a pretender for this spell. You kind of have to make that decision when you make a pretender. Are you going to have the option of Dai Tengu or not? This spell gets you a commander who has air magic and 13 Tengu warriors and 20 Karasu Tengus. Very, very powerful. Pretty good efficiency. It is 55 gems though. That's a lot of air gems for somebody with no native air essentially. We can contact Nushi. We can summon Kuru Oni. We can summon in Muhina. We can summon in Tanuki. We can get the Oni generals. These are the big boys from the early age. We can summon in the Gozumezu, the Jorogumo, the Kitsune, and, excuse me, the Dai-Oni are down here. This is the other fighty guys. But this is the guy from early age Oni. Let's take a look at all these awesome summons. What's the easiest way to do this? I'll try to be relatively in order. So the Ko-Oni, these are the little guys in the early age. Now, unfortunately, they cause unrest and they like chaos power. We probably don't want turmoil. So these guys are not as useful as they could otherwise be, but they're fine. Remember, they have that second spirit form. It can be a nice little surprise for somebody that maybe isn't set up to kill spirit form guys. Cheapy little chaff that you might summon in. We have the Ao-Oni. This is just the cold version. Again, same thing. They like that chaos. We're not really all about that chaos anymore, but if you've got the gems, I think I would summon them in. They're perfectly usable. With the Aka-Oni, that's the fire version of those guys. If you want to see more thoughts about these, you can always go back and check the Yomi pregame video for a little bit more in-depth on them. Next up, we have the Oni himself. This is like the base chassis, has the javelins, has the Nodachi. Again, though, Chaos Power is not something we're really into right now. We went through that phase. We're so over that. Next, these are going to probably be out of order. So we have the Karasu Tingu. This is our sacred that we could summon in. They are very interesting. They have a katana that they're exceedingly good with. 17 attack naturally. Just 17 attack. That is one of the highest ones you're going to find on most things. And they do 19 slashing piercing damage. Perfectly usable there. They do have storm immunity, so if you are putting up storm, that's fine. They fly, of course. They also have lightning strike. This is an AoE 1 attack, and they only get ammo 1, so that could be a little hard to use. But if you did maybe hold an attack rear with these guys, and you deploy them very far forward, they might be able to get that throw off before they fly into the back. It's probably worth doing. It does a decent amount of damage, and it does splash a little bit. Pretty nice. Low on the armor side, so you'd have to think about your bless if you were going to try to make something for these guys. We have the Dai Tengu. This is the commander you get from that summon. Air 3, Earth 1, Nature 1, Priest level 2. Very competent mage, brings in that air magic that you otherwise wouldn't have. Rain of Stones comes to mind seeing this. Could be something kind of interesting. Again, though, 55 air gems, I don't know how you're paying for that, but if you wanted to go that route, you do actually get something pretty good for it. I think we're going to be fully out of order here. So the Muhina, Earth 1, Nature 1, Glamour 2, 50% chance of getting water, earth, or nature. She comes in as a shapeshifter, has fear, has magic power, and is an assassin 3. So another assassin option. This is a pretty beefy assassin. She could do swarm. She could summon in whatever illusion you wanted. And between that and fear and earth, she's probably going to win. Summon a couple things in front of you. Give yourself personal iron skin, and then just attack them and fear them off the field. Would work just fine. The Bakemono or the Bakeneko. This is a shapeshifter. She comes in with 100% of either fire or death. Not the best here, frankly. Shapeshifts into a Bakeneko. Whatever. She's magic power 3, so these stats are actually a bit better than otherwise look. We have the Tunaki. Again, shapeshifter. This one has earth, nature, glamour 2, and a random 100% of fire, water, earth, nature, and an additional 50% of fire, water, earth, nature, glamour. So can actually come in as pretty beefy, especially on the glamour, nature, earth front. So I'm seeing maybe gnomes could be something you might consider being able to summon with these guys, in addition to the Fae type things. Do note these are heretics, so they will lower your dominion, and they do cause unrest. So mischievous little buggers. The Jorogumo. This one is the spider lady. She has 2d6 large spiders at the beginning of battle. Note they say large, but they're not that big, actually. She shapeshifts into a giant golden spider. Naturally, she has 2 spider claws and a web spit, and then she has the spider form, of course. Water 1, Death 2, Nature 2, Glamour 1, and 100% of Fire, Water, Death, Nature, Glamour. So again, could be a very competent caster, although are you saving up gems for this spell specifically? I don't know. The Kitsune, a summonable spy unit. She does have Glamour 3, Nature 1, and 2 separate 50% chances of air, water, earth, astral, nature, and an additional 25% chance of air, water, earth, astral, glamour. So again, you can come in with some really high magic here. She is a spy, but not an assassin. She is very stealthy. She might be worth summoning in just so you have access to a spy if you like spy actions, or just want to see graphs or know exactly which throne you're attacking into. So yeah, I could see Kitsune. They're not too expensive either. Next up, we have the Nushi. Nushi is a Water 3, Death 1, Nature 2. Good researcher, weirdly enough. Has Awe 3, Cold Resist. She shapeshifts into a swamp serpent. It has swimming, has swamp survival, provides supply. However, comes in with homesickness. So I don't think I'm getting these. We have efficient researchers elsewhere. Unless there's something here that you're very specifically wanting to do. Homesickness is quite a penalty. I don't think this is it. We have our Dai-Oni, as mentioned, at, I believe that was Conj 8. The monster, the absolute monster. Now, again, you're probably not going Chaos Power. In fact, you might even be going Order 1. So this does hurt his stats a tiny bit, but not horrifically so. Fire 2, Earth 2, Death 3, Priest level 1, a random 100% chance of fire, air. There is some air for you. Earth, and Death. Now, these guys are kind of hard to actually get that spell off, but I think they're definitely worthwhile. Even if I didn't make a pretender to do it, I would probably work on getting a guy up who could cast this spell. They're that good. Fire Shield, Temper Flesh, Personal Iron Skin, Soul Vortex, Phoenix Pyre maybe, and I win with these guys. Just remember that to summon these in, to summon these guys in here, you need to have Death 4, Fire 1. So you're looking at probably a Death 3 that has a Skull Staff. So exceedingly doable with just native guys. So quite nice there. Next up, we have the Onishugo. This is the one I mixed up. This guy is our old leader from Yomi, essentially. Comes in with Death 2 and a random of Fire, Air, Earth. So pretty good pathing there. He's kind of competing for gems with other things I think are better, but he's very solid. If you wanted to use him, I think that would be totally fine. We have the Shura. This is the Ghost General. Very nice unit here. Now, unfortunately, he is undead, so you do have a distinct weakness there. 100 leadership, though, is very good. 150 undead leadership. He is an amphibian. He has fear, cold resist, poison resistant, has a chill aura, is ethereal. However, he has vulnerability to salt, and he does have spirit form. No magic pathing. I think these guys are interesting, but am I going to spend gems on those rather than some of our other things? Probably not. But he is an option that is nice to have. So pretty nice lineup here. Most of these are usable, and even the ones I don't like are fine. You could come up with uses for them. That's pretty distinct from a lot of nations like this, where they look like they have a billion summons, but in practice you would never use most of them. Most of these have a purpose, and most of these are natively castable, barring our air guys. So big thumbs up there. Other magic you want to consider: point buffing. We like point buffing. So beyond conjuration and just summoning other things, and in fact, actually, now that I just said that, we're actually missing, hang on a second. Yeah, we're actually missing 2 units here. We have the, where are you at? We have the giant centipede, the Okukade. This is a monstrous centipede. This is a size 8, and it mentions here that they can attack dragons. They actually could maybe kill a dragon. They're that ridiculous. They're a size 8 humongous centipede that has a death poison, and they're very summonable by us. So is a consideration there. And I guess we did talk about the other one. It was the spider lady. I think it's you. Yeah, supernatural spider. We did look at her. She was just in her human form. So do note we also have that centipede. As mentioned, we like point buffing. So getting summon fire power or phoenix power and summon earth power, very nice. Alteration, all the alteration buffs are good. We could even consider thugging on our Bakemono sorcerer. They do have 11 protection, so a personal iron skin plus a temper flesh plus wearing some armor. These guys could actually do some work. Especially, you would need to have unaging for them, though. But that is an option. So alteration is definitely on the table here. Protection buffs, especially from this one, are pretty good. We do have some nature people who would like to be able to bark skin and eagle eyes, etc. We could do some moss body. All good things. We do have people who can easily get up to Earth 3. So Destruction's on the table. Curse of Stones is on the table. Pretty darn good. We could give ourselves fire resistance. or cold resistance in this case, could be really useful. Fire resistance here. Because we like throwing around fire arrows, we do have a lot of friendly fire, so maybe something you'd want to be able to do. Evocations, again, we have up to 3 in fire, earth, and death, and we have up to 2 in water. There are tons of options here. Kind of pick your poison for what you would like. Magma eruption, that's on the table. You want to do an AoE 6 for 22 plus damage? Yeah, you could do that. You could do that. Pretty darn nice. Construction, I do think construction's good for us. Unfortunately, we don't have the Alquill. So we're looking at construction 5 for research boosters. And this nation, I don't think we rush that. I think we get some point buffing up at least first, and then we circle back to this and get things like jars of fire would be rather nice, various pieces of armor, and maybe weapons for our various light thugs and assassins. Good stuff. Temper armors also works really good on our big Bakemono samurai guys. Pretty darn nice. Enchantment's another really good one for this nation. Things like Strength of Giants, things like Ignite Arrows. Very, very nice. Regeneration. We can struggle a bit, but we could thistle mace up to this for casting regeneration on some of our guys. The Giant Strength, as previously mentioned, very good. Twice borning things to get rid of some cost. We don't need tons of death gems, especially if you're not going to climb Conjuration super high. So I think that would be a fine use of those. Flame Ward, of course. Flaming Arrows, I think, is an early goal. I think you could even do something like rush for Enchant 5 and then rush to Construction 3 for Jars of Fire. And then you could just have a few Bakemono Shaman start off the combat with doing Flaming Arrows, and then they could switch into buffing troops in front of them or into a light thug roll. I think that'd be perfectly fine. You also easily can cast Weapons of Sharpness, can make your slashing and piercing weapons deal AP damage. That could be huge. Those big 26, 28 damage slash weapons, well, now they're AP slash weapons. They will definitely cut apart something like a monolith if you could get that off. Beyond that, I think we're kind of tapped out there. We're not really interested in reanimating things, although reanimating archers is kind of interesting. They have the Banefire arrows. Maybe could be something you'd be interested in. In Thaumaturgy, I think the big thing here is being able to do either Bonds of Fire to help out kind of our tiny Bakemono who aren't the best attackers in the world. That would just be nice for them. Or Battle Fury, same thing. +2 attack, +2 morale. All of our melee troops would like this. None of our melee troops are like horrible, but this just really helps them out. The morale just keeps them in combat, and the attack either makes it so that your super heavy hitting thing doesn't miss and you get like 1 kill per attack, or maybe your Yari can get some extra repels with that +2. That would take them to 13 attack. Very, very powerful there. I would definitely consider that. Beyond that, we don't have water 3s, unfortunately. That's probably where we kind of top out. Yeah, that's probably where we top out, is getting maybe just a little bit here up to like Furious Warriors, or maybe you want to go up to the Gift of Furies. I could see that. I could definitely see that. Size 20 plus for the buff would be rather nice. So overall, tons of options here. I think picking your poison for what buff you want to get, and I think it's Flaming Arrows, and then just go for it. I don't think you can really go wrong with anything except for maybe Blood Magic. We just don't have a native Blood Searcher. So very, very nice, wide, deep pathing on our guys. A pleasure to play with those mages. I just can't overstate how good Bakemono sorcerers are, especially if you bring them in young, so we don't have all those penalties. So much fun to be had here. And you know what? If your current strategy isn't working, you could switch it up and do like Skeleton Hordes. Horde of Skeletons is still a spell, right? A few of these guys pumping skeletons out in front of your wall of Dai Bakemono getting buffed, that would be very hard for people to deal with. By the time they cut through all your skeletons, these guys have exhausted their fire arrows that they're probably firing, and they're fully buffed up with temper armor, strength of giants, weapons of sharpness, and they're going to come in and just slice your tired troops apart. So again, just another good strategy there. A lot of victory vectors with different types of magic here, for sure. Okay, let's bring all that together. Shinuyama is a nation that has a really good spread of troops, cheap but effective, and elite and very effective. We have a good lineup of commanders. We have 100 leadership on plenty of good chassis. We also have possibly very efficient research if you go Magic 3, and an exceedingly potent sorcerer unit if you go Unaging Bless. I think we go Unaging Bless. That's how good I think this unit is. I think this is arguably one of the best mages in the game. Like, he's top 5 bare minimum, I would say. Not cap only. One little thing fixes his problem, getting Unaging, and we're on a nation that's fine on because we don't really have sacreds that we have to worry about. Has good pathing that's usable, tons of good cross pathing. So good. So good. So carry that thought into our next section. Pretender design. We have a pretty limited pool of gods here, unfortunately. For our Dominion ones, we do have a special. We have the Bakemono Kunshu. He is interesting in the fact that he has immortality, and he has immortality with fire and death. So we could set him up to do like Firestorm, or Winds of Death would be a little bit on the pricey side, but that may even be worth it, having an immortal god for that. Maybe. At least that's interesting. 130 is a little bit pricey, and 40 path costing kind of sucks, but at least he's super flavorful. I could see something here, maybe. Unfortunately, he does not have the unaging paths, which, again, it's just what I feel is what you want. Moving up to the Dom 2s, we do have the Asian set here. So we have the Black Taurus of the North, the White Tiger of the West, the Azure Dragon of the East, the Celestial Dragon, the Dragon King, the Vermilion Bird of the South. We have the God Spider. For a lot of these guys, I'm just not feeling it. I don't think we need an Awake Expander because we can expand just fine. If you wanted one, Earth Serpent is still a relatively reliable unit. Yeah, I just not seeing it there. I will do a special call out. White Tiger of the West. This is such a good chassis. 150 points for what can be a melee expander god is very viable. I wish this was more the price point for a lot of these other chassis. Like Earth Serpent is 240 points. That's 90 more points than the White Tiger. Additionally, I think that as Shinuyama, we probably want production, and we probably want production 3 because we can get troops for both resources and gold. Those are 2 different limiting factors for us. We can have a ton of resources, spin that almost all the way down, and then get Bakemono to use up the rest of our gold. So I quite like getting production, and we have 2 chassis here that are the primos for that, since we can go up to production 3. White Tiger of the West comes in with Earth Magic and Astral Magic. Unfortunately, does not have the magic for Unaging, and it is 80 for a new path, so kind of pricey there. So you would have to pay quite a bit for that. Beyond that, I'm not in love with a lot of these other ones here. Moving up to Dom 3, we have some interesting ones. Most notable, I would say, is Jade Emperor. Now, again, 240 points is really expensive. However, Jade Emperor does come in with some air. If you want to do the Tengu, that's a possibility. He also allows you to up your order and your production even higher. So this is also maybe your guy if you're going pure scales. Beyond that, the Niori, interesting in that he's a bringer of fortune. I don't know how good that is here. Kamiya Storms, interesting, but again, I don't know how useful he is. He's just so bloody expensive. Kamiya the Sun, she actually has Sight Vengeance, so you can set her up to be kind of an interesting expander, although a little bit on the dangerous side. You'd do something like self-buff Fire Shield and Body Ethereal, and then you rely on those to blind people between awe and blind to then kill them off. Yeah, she works, but it's just so expensive. Going up to Dom 4, we already have Magic +1, so I think the Idol Sorcery is kind of out. Idol of Beasts, I will give him a shout out. Same thing for the Idol of Man. They have air, they have nature. So if you want to do kind of all the things, you could get your Tengu and still have Unaging for relatively cheap prices here. I'm just thinking which one would be the better of the two. Probably Idol of Beast just for being so bloody cheap, but either one I think would work just fine. Monolith again for Unaging could work. Let's take a look at a couple chassis that I actually built. All right, this is Grandpa Yang. This is a Jade Emperor. He comes in imprisoned, so note that right away. What he mainly does is he kind of does all the things that we want to do. So he has the possibility of getting Tengu. Now, do note, imprisoned, so that's year 3, but it's probably going to be year 3 by the time you have 55 air gems, even if you could cast it. So I don't think that's too bad. 2 air, a water, 2 earth, 4 astral, 3 nature. Kind of a wide spread here. He gets Unaging and Farcaster and pretty decent scales overall. Unfortunately, I couldn't afford to go up to order 2. I would have liked to, since he does give us an order bonus, but just could not afford to do it. Maybe drop luck down to go up order. Maybe that would be a better build there. I don't think he's the more useful of the two. I actually like Sleepy the Cat. This is again imprisoned. We're taking again Unaging and Farcaster, just really focusing in on that Bakemono sorcerer that is just so ridiculously good. This guy comes in with much better scales. He forgoes the Tengu, but for giving that up, he comes in with 1 order, 3 production, 1 heat, 2 growth, 2 luck, and 3 magic. This guy makes your scales just sing. You have good money once you get a couple forts up, and even more so if you can get underground and get that nice 15% bonus on top of all of this. You need that money because your sorcerers are very expensive. However, remember, you also only are building forts, so you're saving that 600 gold from a castle level for every one of those. That's an extra sorcerer in the early game that you can save. And when he does come out, he's okay. Astral 4 is a little on the iffy side, but he could come out and he could body ethereal himself. He could throw some other spells if you're not worried about magic duels. Does have fear. I think he's more of just a stat stick and stay at home and craft, maybe show up to some fights again if you're just really sure there's no astral mages that are going to magic duel you. I like this build quite a bit. He's kind of boring. I wish he could be like awake and do awake cool things, but that's just not him. Farcaster and Unaging just make our sorcerers ridiculously good. Like so good. Both offensively and for point buffing. I think this is just cream of the crop. I'd be curious to see if anyone else has other builds that really stand out. I would be very hard pressed to be convinced that Unaging is not worthwhile here, but maybe somebody has a secret sauce build out there that could do it. In conclusion, middle-aged Shinuyama, probably the best of the 3 nations between Yomi, Shinuyama, and Yomen. Probably the strongest state that they ever are actually in. The other 2 nations have various problems and are competing with various things in their age. Now, we do have some bad matchups, like Ermor we're not the best at, but we do have options. Spoiler, it's Sorcerer. Same thing for Asphodel. Spoiler, it's Sorcerer again. But I think they have some really cool tech pieces here with like the Sutendoji and the Nopperero bow. We have just fun samurai troops. We have ogres. We have little gobbo boys. Such a fun nation. Tons of flavor. The magic pathings are just fun. There's offense and point buffing, and we're just good at doing it. We're not struggle bus. We're not dependent on a 25% chance to get something usable. It's just good. Lots of crafting opportunities if you want to try to make some cool thugs. I think that's a possibility. Just overall, a nation I really enjoy. And I think that shows here as I ramble through this quite long, for me, lately video. But let me hear your thoughts on the nation. I would love to do it. I'm literally looking forward to this one. I think it's going to be a fun one. Anything I'm good at expanding with means we will probably have a pretty good stream. And these guys are pretty good expanders, which is always nice. All right, that's going to be it for Shinuyama. If you would be so kind, leave a like on your way out the video for the Gobble Boys and Bakemono Shall Rise. If you're not already a channel member, I'd love your subscription. Come back in, join us on stream, share some Dominions thoughts, or join us for some of the other content. Love to see people out there. If you want to go even further to support this channel and the Dominion series, you could always leave a super thanks on the video. You could join us live when we're streaming for a super chat, or consider becoming a member of the channel. As a member of the channel, you get early access to videos like this. For Dominion specifically, it's usually a week in advance. In addition to whatever content I'm currently working on, usually goes up as a member's first video as a thank you to those of you supporting the channel. Other than that, get out there and make some samurai armor, and I'll see you on stream. Babble out.